Back to St. Daysburg in 62, and I think she knew very much as well. People like Air Marshal J.R., who was the Eastern Commander-in-Chief, Eastern Command, he told me that he was sitting in his Spudamisteer on the Daysburg airfield, ready to take off because they're expecting orders to deal with the Chinese.
In 62?
That's right, in 62.
Yeah,
especially with Harbaksh as four-corps commander right there, calling in. Yes, calling a strike and stuff. They were ready to go.
Yeah, but my boss, Chief Master Shivkunal, was in the cockpit in Arpor, ready to go in a hunt.
But the orders never came.
Yeah, the point I think is that they're not just ready to go. They turned on the engines and they're sitting there with the airplane shuddering to take off with the brakes on. And order came down, stand down. Now, the frustration is precisely because, by the way, the real reason was B.C. Roy, who was then the Chief Minister of West Bengal, as perhaps some of you recall, told him, please don't use the aircraft to bomb the Chinese positions or the PLA, because they might respond by bombing Calcutta. And Nehru accepted that advice. And therefore, our best card, if we could have played against the Chinese in 62, was not played. In other words, the advantage we had, the only advantage we had, was Air Force, and we didn't use it. And this leads me to believe that will we use that advantage, assuming we have it, Air Vice Marshal, in even imminent or imminent, fracas on the border? I doubt it. The reason being, and the reason I tell you why did we vacate the post on Kailash Range, as some of you perhaps read the newspaper?
The South Bengal, yeah.
Why did we vacate them? There's no reason to vacate it. The first real success of the entire encounter with Indian Special Forces, the Special Frontier Force, that's geared for warfare at heights, captured it, and suddenly the Chinese found that they were looking down on the Moldo garrison.
Yeah.
And the Chinese got spooked. Why did we give it up without anything in return, adequate return, that we should have insisted on? And in any case, they shouldn't have vacated it because we claimed that to be part of the LAC. So, how come the Indian government decided to withdraw virtually unilaterally? Because they say, they're firming up the line on the fingers on the northern Pangong shore and so on. Doesn't make military sense. That's precisely the problem. So when you say that, we have the advantage, yes, the advantage doesn't matter unless you use it.
Yeah.
May I just make a point in the same thing? It's not just the Air Force which was ready to go in 62, even Seahawks and Alizés had been moved up to Gorakhpur. They were also ready to go. Individual bridges, individual targets. So a slight correction of what you said. In fact, when I was doing the history of the Air Force in 1992, we had just finished interviewing Air Marshal A.K. Dewan, who had been with CNC in 71. And I finished my conversation with him, and I was packing up the scenario mics and stuff like that, when he said, I want to talk about 1962. So I looked at him and I said, what about it? And he said, I was ACS Ops. And he came up with something which was so stunning that actually even Air Headquarters went into a virtual paralysis when they heard this. He said the decision to not use the Air Force has been given to, it was a political decision, everybody, all writers have said that, but actually it was a decision which was brought about by two people. One was B.M. Malik, who for some strange reason advised against using the Air Force, despite the fact that the PLA aircraft had actually defected to Taiwan and the Americans had handed over that pilot to us. We knew China does not have aviation fuel. We knew they can't get airborne. Jagannath was flying in Canberra all over the place, not once did they intercept it.
Yeah.
And yet we decided not to do it. And what Dewan said was that the decision not to do this was mine. And I said, why the heck would you say that? So he called up his logbooks and he showed me he was in 7 or 4 squadrons during the Arakan's operation. And he said, I flew 471 sorry, you people, the Japanese, we never saw them. So the same thing applies. I said, sir, have you ever flown in that area? You were CNC East. What are you talking about? Because the passes are so narrow. a couple of napalm attacks over the Chinese were petrified of this because even on the night before the Nankatsu attack, they were hauling up anti-aircraft guns onto the Thal Valley. Because even one vampire shot would have changed things.
Yes, actually he was a group captain at that time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he was a group captain that time, and I have read that there was a group captain XCD1 who moved the snow. I mean, when you think back with hindsight, you really wonder how it was done. Amazing, but this is a fact. The point about withdrawal from the heads. Professor, the point is like this. Finally, it's a political decision, and you rightly use the word the government of India. I don't think any one of us, at least I don't know, what was the reason why we withdrew from Delhi. But because when you see from outside, you do feel that why did we? We had a strong point there. And after that, the Chinese have just got their heels in on DBO, the Death Sound planes. I've found enough in that area to tell you that the way they have moved, and now those areas which are no-go for our troops to do patrol brings them very close to a track junction and DBO. I do not know how flying is going on there. We have a different route, of course, available. But why it happened, one doesn't know. There must have been something really.
Yeah, just
Yes,
add one
yes.
thing. The PLA now has built a bridge, a two-way bridge, from the northern Pangong shore to get to the Model Garrison, and that will, speed up the redeployment or switching of forces northern shore to Maldives and the Kailash Range. Should they ever want to do that, they've cut down the shift time from 3 to 4 days to a few hours, 13 hours. They can bring in a reinforced deployment right into Maldives. I mean, the point to make really is that somewhere, sometime, and invariably, so seems to me anyway, the government of India loses its nerve. It doesn't have the nerve to fight. If I may say so very, perhaps plainly, doing some plain speak. It's happened again and again that we're in these situations and we invariably back down. So, now, you can say that Group Captain Dewan was responsible for that off decision at the time. And B.M. Malik, for those who don't know, was the Intelligence Bureau Chief, who was close to Nehru, and he was supposed to be the one source intelligence expert in China to Nehru, and he completely misled Nehru all the time. But Nehru should have used his head, because he was getting other inputs. And he was not using it, but that's a separate matter. The point to make simply is this: if you're going to be, a match or try to be a match for China, then you have to be like China in preparing to have war if that becomes necessary in your interest. And so the point, if you're vacated, by the way, the Chinese now have in the water sector, the Depsan sector, virtually taken over some 69 posts. We have lost 1,000 square kilometers of Indian territory, and that's a fact. The government of India still doesn't acknowledge it. But the fact is we have lost 1,000 square kilometers of territory, critical territory, fronting on the Xinjiang highway, which we could have otherwise interdicted by land. Had we had the will and the nerve and the rest of it, which we don't have. So the point, and the short point to make is, assuming we have our forces are given everything they want, would the government still fight?
I think the problem goes a little deeper. I completely lost this. I've been saying the same thing, that the psychological hammering that we took in 1962 will continue to carry that monkey on our shoulders. And whatever happened in Nathula, for example, has been highly exaggerated and stuff like that. There are incidents, Nathula, the 1986 incident in the Kumrong Valley. The main issue here is that we just haven't had the gumption to stand up to the Chinese. And the Chinese are basically bullies. They will see where they can get the upper hand and they will go for it. And we have just been sort of rolling over again and again and again. And unless we develop that ability to just stare them back in the eye, and completely remove everything else. So that is one aspect of the problem. The other problem, which we haven't touched upon, is that our northern border management policy is actually virtually non-existent. I hate to say this in a public forum, but it's a fact. You've got ITBP looking after the northern border. You've got, we are such a mess, we don't know what's going on. The ITBP was not sharing information with the army. The army is on its own trip. Everybody is doing their own thing. The ITBP comes under the Home Ministry. We had an intelligence grid where the army was not part of it. I mean, there are major lacunas in our whole functioning. And by putting our head in the sand and pretending that these problems don't exist, they're not going to go away. And they're going to come and bite you in the butt, because this is exactly what happened in 2020. The ITBP quickly moves out, army comes in, ITBP is supposed to come under the army, but the ITBP officers turn around and tell the army, my pay grade is higher than yours, who the hell are you to tell me what to do? These are real problems here.
Yeah.
And the fact is, unless we have a border management system in place, don't forget that even in Vietnam, it was the border guards of Vietnam who gave the PLA a bloody nose in 1976. We haven't learned from anybody else's, forget about our own mistakes, we haven't learned from others' successes and failures either.
Can I just,
Yes.
I don't want to belabor the point, but the 30 to 40 additional battalions that are now being released in ITBP.
40, I think, so 42.
42 odd battalions, right? I mean, are you building at the ITBP? It's almost as if Amit Shah wants his own army. That's basically it. The reason ITBP, CRPF, and the rest of the paramilitaries were, in a sense, created by Indira Gandhi and given a kind of resources.
Kind of counterbalancing.
Was to counterbalance the military.
Yeah.
And in those days, there was a real fear in the Indian government that there would be, what they call Ayub-Khanitis, you see, a kind of virus that would come in from Pakistan and the Indian military would take over.
Yeah.
And that was a real fear, mind you. And so to deal with that, Indira Gandhi created all these paramilitaries. They were completely useless. As military forces, they are nearly completely useless. And you have more of them now being useless. So just having masses of useless people standing their ground at heights is not going to solve your problem, is it? But this is the kind of thing we do. Things that are not going to be helpful to India's security or Indian interests.
I need to draw back a little, lest people go with a different view. The cutting edge, when the orders come, are the boys and girls now in the frontline squadrons. Okay? Helicopter units, transport units, radar units, logistics units. Let me tell you one thing, that all that the professor spoke, I was still agreeing, sir. That's for the higher echelons and the interactions what happens between the government and the higher echelons. But the cutting edge, the people who will actually, kill and get killed, unfortunately, are raring to go. Let me tell you that.
Oh yeah, that works from the army.
Let's be clear on this part.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, lest anybody gets the wrong impression that the guys up front, out there in Leh, Ladakh, or Northeast, or in Sikkim, or the Navy down south, those guys don't have the guns to fight. No, far from it. They follow orders. And what the professor said is the higher levels, where a lot many issues go in before you can actually launch war. It's not a simple thing. So the government takes into account so many other things, political, diplomatic, money, and, well, let's face facts, elections. Okay, I mean, all these things play, and the government thereafter takes a decision. But the fighting force is strong, class 1, first class.
I can tell you that just after the standoff began, after the Galwan clash, one of my privileges is being able to go to some of these forward areas, and I was in Ladakh sometime in late 2020, just before the operations in South Pangong began. And what Vice Marshal says is absolutely true. I've spent time with the airmen, soldiers there, and they are all fully ready. They're prepared, like as if they're going to be ordered to go in tomorrow. So the morale is extremely high. They're fully prepared. But yes, that aspect of us being reactive is ever present. One can get that sense as well.
Just one.
Yeah.
So just to continue what you said.
Yes.
I was stationed command at Jammu when Parakram was on. And I still remember, I think it was 15th of January 2002. When the CG came, walking from station to station, took me aside and said, Bahdoor, are you ready? That's all he said. I said, yes. And then, my hair is standing up. We were ready. In Parakram. And same thing, middle May, when unfortunately our army families got killed in Kaluche.
Yeah.
That was the second time we almost went in. Alright, but the government has other things.
But since 1965, it's the junior leadership of the armed forces which has actually built us up. And Karnad again is a classic case where the junior leadership, whether it's the Air Force, whether it's the Navy, and I've had the privilege of flying with them and operating with them. I filmed the whole Kargil war, so I think nobody had a better view of what was going on. The junior leadership in this country is something which has bailed us out time and again. And in fact, that's why what Professor Karnad is talking about, and even I'm alluding to, actually hurts. Because you're not backing them up. You're letting them down again and again by simply not taking certain overall decisions which strengthens their hand. How long are you going to always rely on that poor chap and say, Chadla wo paad pe, you're going to clear the guy out? And every time they have delivered, but push it. And a lot of it has to do with institutions like the National Defence Academy, the Indian Military Academy, and the Air Force Academy, where our training systems are absolutely outstanding. And as far as motivation levels go, you can't get better troops, but they have to be led, and without leadership, you're nothing.
I'll ask one more round of questions, and then I think I can open it up to the audience. I'm sure you might have questions as well. Starting once again with you, Marshall, is war a real possibility between India and China in Eastern Ladakh? Because this is a question from a layperson's perspective, because they see what's happening there, they see some of the images coming out of there, they do know that violence has taken place. The armies came very close to fighting once again in early 2021. Is war a real possibility?
First of all, the last thing any uniformed person wants is a war.
Yeah.
Last thing. Okay? But if it comes, he goes. Okay. Having said that, see, presently I think the Chinese would have realized that their equipment is basically Russian origin, much improved, many of the new things. They have seen how things have happened in the Russia-Ukraine war. To my understanding, they would be thinking now, where is it that the Russians have gone wrong in a way? Why is it that a sort of a stalemate has happened and it's gone into a war of attrition? And rethinking this particular issue. So there is a hot water happening there in the world, shall I say?
Yeah.
They have a problem to deal with AUKUS now, Australia, UK, America. They have the South China Sea issue. They have the Japanese. They can see that we are doing exercise with the Japanese on the eastern part of China. That is, we are making a little foray into Vietnam in the South China Sea, etc. So I personally feel that war would not happen when you talk war, because they know we are ready, and generally the world opinion is not in favor of a war in any case, and things will go our way if it happens now. That's what I feel.
Okay.
Very difficult to say war, it just cannot happen.
Okay, but importantly, you're saying if war does happen, it will go our way now. Why do you say no?
I think the world opinion should be with us, because we don't have, we are sort of a status quo image, shall I say, that we don't want anything from them. If there's anything, they are transgressing on our territory. Having already done so much from 62 onwards and before. So I don't think so. So I think the opinion should be with us, and all these things are taken into account by any national leadership before it takes a decision to go do such an important thing like war.
Professor David?
Look, the question is, I think Shiv Verma talked about the Indian reactive policy and strategies and outlook. The real problem is it's not just reactive, it's defensive, passive, reactive. So you have a triple whammy. It's not just reactive. defensive, passive, reactive. And that kind of an attitude, whether anybody likes it or not, seeps down into the military over time. It cannot be kept isolated from these kinds of mainstream influences. That said, is the war imminent? No. But is the war imminent? Yes. Simply because the Chinese are not idiots. They've always gotten by coercing indirectly or directly, and insofar as you are coerced and you do their bidding, there's no war. There'll never be any war with China if you give in. So the question is, are you going to give in every time by not fighting? Now, how much of a provocation do you want? They've already occupied territory. What is your LAC? Either you stick to your idea of LAC or you don't. Or it's a flexible line, wherein whatever the Chinese take, they keep on taking and then define some new LAC. Or you say, no, this is our idea of LAC, we're going to evict you from it. Now that mainly is something beyond the Indian military, in practical terms, and that's what the government thinks. Anyway, I don't know what the military thinks of its capabilities. That's what the government thinks. And therefore you have a real problem. If the war is imminent, meaning it may happen, it happens if for some reason we develop a spine in standing up to China. Because think of it, all the so-called military successes we have had today are basically against a non-adversary like Pakistan, isn't it? And being brutally honest, have we had any? We have had successes, and that comes down to the leadership. You had the Sagat Singh at Nathula in 1967. You had the Sagat Singh, Lieutenant General Sagat Singh, who led, and he was the man mainly responsible for taking Dhaka, who is not heralded. He couldn't even make army commander. Lesser people made it. The finest fighting commander never made it. So you have something wrong in the rewards that you're given in military terms, right? It's an attitude. That's what I mean. It seeps down. People become, as I said, uniform bureaucrats, uniform babus. They are risk averse. That's fair enough. Because if all you have been acculturated to is a government that's in the teacher, let's give it a little bit, war nature, then, we have peace. And they say, we have peace in the graveyard. You can happily live in the graveyard next to our homes. That kind of an attitude. So, really, and one last thing, Shiv, if there's going to be imminent war, and we are not prepared, because our forces are not equipped to fight, our army is not prepared with basically a plains warfare army, even now. It will take 25 years for it to become a mountain offensive army. And do we have the time? And the other thing is, if we don't, and we are faced with a situation where either we succumb to pressure once again, or we try to be proactive, then would you rather not be proactive? And that's what I've been recommending in my books. What do we do? I say, use your nuclear weapons as a short fuse deterrent. Keep it, forward deploy Agni 5s, have the Agni 1s and so on, nuclear war-headed, forward deploy them, announce it to the world that if anything happens, we will merely react. We will not be the initiators of nuclear war. But if anybody crosses, we will in fact go strategic. If you don't hold up the threat, there's no threat to hold up with the Chinese. There's nothing else you have, honestly. They're not going to be thwarted and deterred by any of your Air Force edge that you have with the altitude and the ordnance load you can carry. That's not the deterrent. What's the strategic deterrent is you can take out the Fujian coast with Agni 5s. That's a deterrent, because that will send China back to the Stone Age economically. They're going to be the fastest rising economy, it will be the main primary economy of the world by 2040. If we kill that, or threaten to kill that, they'll very quickly understand. But that means we have to back up our deterrent clock with actual deployment up front, a very short fuse deterrent. And one last thing, And people mistake what I keep saying, that this guy is a hardline, ultra hawk and so on and so forth. That's how cases of money of all people define, which is ridiculous. Relations of money. And we should have this discussion all the time in the National Security Advisory Board and elsewhere. But the problem is, and you hear the generals and air marshals and all the military people saying that, which really bothers me, when they say nuclear weapons are for deterrence, not for fighting. They are weapons. They are for weapons. Unless the enemy sees us prepare for using them, there is no deterrence. Deterrence is my field. Nuclear deterrence is my field. I'm telling you, there's no deterrence. That's why Chinese are hardly going to be bothered if you say they're going to go into Air Force, they're going to bring in attack helicopters. No, that's not going to be deterrent.
I disagree, sir, on the detail.
Almost out of time, so final question to Shivkunal.
I basically feel.
But I just want to narrow it down to one final question. You can add to what they've said and also answer my question, which is, what is the road ahead now? Is there going to be a resolution to it? Is this the new normal? Is this the new status quo? Everyone just lives with this now. Is there a possibility of the Chinese pulling back, or things going back to a pre-2020?
I think we need to define war first. And I think 2019 onward, we are at war with China. All the pretenses that there was possibility of some sort of normalcy on the border and that Pakistan was the main threat, and we were behaving like ostriches with our head in the sand. I think all that's gone out of the window. The conflict has begun. It is not just an India or China thing, it's also the United States and China jostling for world power. We are all big players in this, and the situation is constantly evolving. War does not necessarily mean fighters streaming across the sky and missiles going left and right, but it's being fought at the cyber level, it's being fought at the economic level, it's being fought at 150 levels. A lot of those levels we are not even aware of. What Professor Karnad has just said in terms of deterrence and missiles, he's talking nuclear, but I had actually advocated exactly the same thing in 2020 in my own article in Sunday Guardian. And I have also been saying, what's the point of having these missiles if you're not going to very well use them? So deploy them. And in fact, tell the Chinese that we've got them in Simla, we've got them in Dehradun, we've got them here, and they are primed and they're ready to go. If you do anything, we will react. The way ahead is that, we've also got to be very careful about not getting blindly pushed into the western corner, because one of the reasons why 1962 Mao did react was because of the CIA involvement in what was going on. We blindly went into certain things. We did allow U-2 flights from Kalaikunda. There was a lot of arms shipment from Sikkim, etc. It was all added to the Chinese suspicion of India lining up with the United States. That, from their perspective, still remains one of the largest threats that they face. And if India actually gets forced into the western camp with no holds barred, it would be a completely different scenario. And the Americans have always looked at Tibet as the soft underbelly of China. We have to, purely from an Indian perspective, and I've said this time and again, we have to prepare for Fortress India. We have to knock off all the other nonsense which is going on about the fault lines that we are so good at creating, Hindus, Muslims, Swiss, from Punjab, because everything affects us. National security, when we realize we have to start thinking Fortress India. You're sitting in Manmohan today, you're not far removed from what is going on in the Himalayas. If you're sitting in Trivandrum, you're no further removed. You're as much a part of the whole game. And we just cannot afford to let our guard down. And you can only quote from what Franklin Roosevelt used to say. He used to say that if you want to walk alone, you better carry a big stick. And whether Make in India and all this stuff is all, there's a lot happening in terms of what is going on. I was involved with the Navy. I know that we have built ships like INS Delhi, INS Mysore and all that way back by 1900s. Before the turn of the century. And there's a lot happening. The LCA, the Tejas, all these developments are going on, but they're not enough. We've really got to get more and more self-reliant. Be very clear that India comes first as far as everything is concerned, and be very careful that we're not actually pushed into the Western thing, unless it suits us. And these games are going on. I mean, you know, it's constantly on. And I disagree on this point that war is imminent. No, war is already on. World War II, World War III began with the COVID outbreak.
Yeah.
And it's going on. And when history is written 50 years down the line, you'll be wondering why you're sitting here without helmets and you're not in a bunker actually, because the situation will look like that.
Just one second.
Yeah, one last one. Yes, please.
He said a very important point. When you talk of comprehensive national security, societal oneness, societal cohesion is so very important. So, any strife within our society, based on whatever, thinking, ideology, religion, language, whatever, that affects our social fabric. And social fabric, the tenacity of social fabric is so important in comprehensive national security.
That's a great word to end this on, but I think we just have about 5 minutes left.